Richard Wilson imagined his position as landlord granted him absolute authority when he spotted an elderly black man occupy the parking space he coveted. He unleashed hateful prejudice, ridiculed the man's military service, and questioned his very worth as a human being. But verbal assaults weren't sufficient for his wife Karen, who delivered a stinging slap across Marcus's weathered cheek, certain an old man wouldn't dare retaliate. Neither suspected they were confronting a former Army Special Forces operative, someone trained to neutralize genuine threats, not entitled individuals with fragile egos. When Marcus refused to cower before their hostility, Richard charged forward with blind fury, quickly discovering that aggression alone cannot triumph over disciplined skill. Karen Wilson assumed she could physically assault a black veteran without consequence. Instead, she was about to receive a powerful lesson about accountability for one's actions. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. For Marcus Johnson, patience wasn't merely acquired during military service. It was woven into the fabric of his existence. Throughout his training exercises, battlefield operations, and daily navigation of American society as a black man, he understood that restraint functioned equally as survival mechanism and personal discipline. Hostile words could wound like weapons, but calculated silence, when strategically deployed, often cut deeper. This explained his measured response when an aggressive car horn blasted behind his vehicle, a sharp, demanding noise saturated with entitlement. He had barely guided his sedan into the apartment complex parking space, hadn't even fully engaged the parking brake, when he noticed a luxury SUV positioned at an angle suggesting its driver intended to claim that very spot. Exhaling quietly, he already anticipated who operated that vehicle before visual confirmation. The rear-view mirror revealed exactly what he expected. A man in his early 50s, meticulously groomed, wearing an expensive leather jacket, his expression already twisted into contemptuous disapproval. Marcus immediately recognized the archetype. Someone convinced the universe orbited around his desires. Someone rarely denied his demands. Marcus flexed his aged fingers against the steering wheel while drawing a deep breath. At 69, his once commanding physique had yielded somewhat to time's persistent advance, but his mental faculties remained razor-sharp. Engaging in disputes over parking spaces held absolutely no appeal. If the other driver had been waiting, proper protocol demanded signaling his intention. Had he signaled, Marcus would have observed it. No signal had been given. Case closed. Or it should have been. However, the moment Marcus eased himself from his vehicle, the man approached with aggressive purpose. His polished designer shoes striking the asphalt with staccato arrogance, each step broadcasting imminent confrontation. "Excuse me," he snapped, voice pitched with indignation, speaking with the entitled tone of someone unaccustomed to considering others' perspectives. "That spot was reserved for me." Marcus gently secured his car door, turned to fully address the man, and paused briefly before responding. Didn't notice any reservation sign posted. The man's expression further soured, his lips compressing into a tight, disapproving line. "I was clearly preparing to park there. Didn't see any indicator light," Marcus replied evenly, maintaining calm composure. "Several vacant spaces remain available nearby." "That completely misses the point," the man huffed, folding his arms across his expensive jacket, his entire demeanor transforming into something confrontational, something obstinate. "The real issue is how people like you believe you're entitled to whatever you desire without facing consequences." There it was, the unmistakable undertone. Marcus's jaw tightened momentarily before he consciously relaxed it, exhaling slowly through his nostrils. Walking away remained an option. This interaction wasn't worth his energy or attention. But the man continued his tirade. "This perfectly illustrates what's happening to this neighborhood," he persisted, waving his hand dismissively as though addressing some profound societal injustice rather than a trivial parking disagreement. "You move into places where you clearly don't belong, behave like you own everything in sight, then expect the rest of us to simply accept the situation without complaint." Marcus studied him during a prolonged, weighted silence. He'd encountered countless individuals with similar attitudes throughout his lifetime, those who disguised their prejudice beneath a veneer of righteous indignation, truly convinced they were victims in a distorted worldview. Yet Marcus had never permitted such individuals to dictate his conduct or self-perception. When he finally spoke, his voice remained measured and controlled. "Sir, I've resided in this building for 15 years. I'm simply parking my vehicle. Nothing more complicated occurred here." "Wrong," the man retorted, advancing closer, his words dripping with contempt. "What happened here is another entitled freeloader, believing rules don't apply to him. And don't give me that look. I'm not intimidated into silence. Your kind is systematically destroying this property's value." Marcus could have laughed at the sheer audacity displayed, but refrained. He merely exhaled again, tilting his head slightly while evaluating the man, noting his aggressive stance, the way his fingers twitched impatiently, clearly baiting Marcus to provide justification for further escalation. Marcus refused to participate in that game. "You know absolutely nothing about me," he stated simply, turning to walk away. Mocking laughter pursued him, sharp and derisive. "Oh, please, let me take a wild guess. You consider yourself one of the exceptional ones, correct? Served in the military? Think that grants you special treatment." Marcus halted, deliberately, methodically. He turned back to face his antagonist. "I shed blood defending this nation," he stated, voice unwavering, gaze locked directly with the man's. "People like you have no authority to tell me where I belong." For a fleeting moment, the man hesitated. A brief, almost imperceptible flicker of uncertainty crossed his features. Just as quickly, it vanished as he recovered his arrogant composure, straightening his posture and rolling his eyes dismissively. "Spare me the patriotic rhetoric. The military is nothing but a joke. What? You believe that makes you superior to me? Reality check. It doesn't. You deserve no special consideration merely because you chose to play soldier." Heat gradually crept up Marcus's neck, though he maintained steady breathing. Throughout his life, he'd weathered countless insults, endured far worse treatment in regions where men didn't merely hurl verbal abuse, but actual explosives. Yet something about this particular individual, his absolute, unwavering confidence in his own misguided assumptions, caused Marcus's weathered fingers to flex instinctively at his sides. The man noticed this subtle reaction. A smug, self-satisfied expression flashed across his features, as though he'd achieved some victory, as though he discovered precisely which button would provoke the response he sought. That's when Marcus recognized this confrontation wouldn't conclude peacefully. "I suspect you consider yourself intimidating," the man taunted, stepping uncomfortably closer, near enough that Marcus observed his dilated pupils, noted how his lips curled around each provocative word. "Probably imagine yourself some kind of celebrated hero." A woman's voice suddenly sliced through the mounting tension. "Richard, what's happening over there?" A blonde woman approaching her late 40s emerged from the SUV, an expensive designer handbag swinging from her arm, her narrowed eyes rapidly assessing the situation. "This individual," Richard gestured dismissively toward Marcus, "stole our parking space and is now displaying aggressive behavior." The woman, evidently Richard's wife, advanced forward, her gaze coldly sweeping over Marcus's aging frame. Without warning, her hand whipped upward, fingers curled into a rigid position, then crack. The slap connected with Marcus's weathered cheek, sharp and unexpected, sending waves of shocked murmurs to the small crowd gathering nearby. Marcus remained motionless, unflinching. He simply stood there, his cheek stinging slightly, pulse remaining steady, his military-trained mind processing every potential response within a single breath. The woman's chest heaved with rapid breathing, her hands trembling slightly as though even she seemed surprised by her impulsive action. Yet when she observed Marcus's lack of reaction, absence of retaliation, her expression transformed into one of misplaced triumph. "That's exactly what I anticipated," she breathed, voice thick with unwarranted satisfaction. Marcus exhaled slowly, fingers flexing at his sides while truly seeing her, genuinely seeing her. Then, maintaining perfect composure, he stated, "You've just committed the gravest mistake of your life." She blinked momentarily, her smugness faltering briefly. Marcus made no movement toward her, didn't raise his voice, maintained his composed stance. Yet something in his delivery, the absolute certainty, the quiet finality of his statement, sent a visible flicker of something unfamiliar across her features. Doubt. Just for an instant. Then, swiftly as it appeared, that doubt vanished, submerged beneath the anger she wrapped around herself like protective armor. "Just wait until my husband handles you properly," she hissed, stepping backward, her artificial confidence resurging. "He'll teach you respect." Marcus observed her with slight head inclination, absorbing the evolving situation. This confrontation remained unfinished, far from conclusion, and this woman had absolutely no comprehension of the serious trouble she'd initiated. With deliberate, measured movements, he reached inside his jacket pocket and withdrew a worn leather wallet. He opened it to reveal a military identification card alongside a faded photograph depicting a much younger Marcus in full dress uniform, rows of distinguished medals visible across his chest, including the Distinguished Service Cross. "Master Sergeant Marcus Johnson," he stated quietly. "Army Special Forces, retired. 25 years of dedicated service. 3 combat tours in Vietnam. 2 deployments during Desert Storm." The gathered onlookers fell completely silent. Richard's facial muscles twitched involuntarily, uncertainty briefly disrupting his arrogant demeanor. His wife's smug expression faltered noticeably, her gaze darting nervously between the identification card and Marcus's weathered face. "Your past accomplishments mean nothing here," Richard finally declared, though his voice had lost substantial authority. "This is the present moment. Right now, you're just an elderly man needing a lesson in proper respect." Marcus had dedicated decades to conflict assessment, mastering when engagement proved necessary versus when restraint served better, perfecting his ability to analyze volatile situations before they escalated beyond control. He recognized the dangerous progression unfolding. Richard Wilson, flushed with anger and visibly trembling, had transcended mere irritation about parking space allocation. That trivial matter merely provided convenient pretext, a flimsy justification to unleash something deeper, something ugly that likely festered long before today's chance encounter with Marcus. His verbal attacks were evolving toward physical confrontation. Marcus had witnessed this behavior pattern countless times. Individuals like Richard requiring some rationalization, some perceived justification, enabling them to convince themselves they acted righteously even while crossing moral boundaries. Marcus wouldn't facilitate this transition easily. He adjusted his stance subtly, maintaining relaxed but solid positioning, arms comfortably at his sides. When he addressed Richard again, his voice remained remarkably controlled. "Let me ensure I understand correctly. You're enraged because I legitimately parked in an available space. You're furious because you didn't secure it first, rather than simply locating another nearby spot like any reasonable adult. You're standing here behaving childishly, ranting about how people resembling me are supposedly damaging your neighborhood." Richard's eyes flashed dangerously, but Marcus continued speaking, intercepting the anger before Richard could reshape it into something more destructive. "People resembling me," he repeated methodically. "What precisely does that characterization mean? From my perspective, I simply parked my vehicle, exited it, and minded my personal business, while you're creating a public disturbance in this parking area, shouting as though experiencing some medical emergency." Something flickered across Richard's face. Not hesitation, but irritation at being cornered into explicitly verbalizing his implied prejudice. Marcus recognized his personality type perfectly. Such individuals preferred keeping their bigotry veiled, shrouded in plausible deniability. They wanted freedom to express prejudice without actually naming it, maintaining feelings of superiority without facing accountability. Richard straightened defensively, smoothing his expensive jacket as if adjusting his composure. "Don't pretend ignorance about my meaning," he scoffed dismissively. "Everywhere you look, society deteriorates because of them. Criminal activity increases unchecked. Urban areas crumble, while productive citizens like myself bear the financial consequences." Marcus released a measured breath, his legendary patience visibly thinning. "You're referencing people like myself, a Special Forces veteran who served in more nations than you could likely identify? Someone who risked his life repeatedly protecting American interests, while you enjoyed air-conditioned comfort complaining about trivial inconveniences. Richard stiffened noticeably as Marcus watched realization dawn that whatever preconceived stereotype Richard had mentally constructed didn't remotely match the reality standing before him. Yet his arrogance prevented retreat. "Not yet. Spare me," he scoffed, waving dismissively as though Marcus had spoken nonsense. "Want special recognition? Think military service makes you superior? Elevates you above me?" Marcus maintained unwavering eye contact. "No," he replied. "It simply means I don't take freedom for granted. I actively defended this nation. What comparable contribution have you made?" Richard temporarily fell silent, glaring intensely, breathing increasingly labored, hands clenching into tight fists, then erupted bitter, sharp laughter. "The military is completely worthless. All of you, nothing but government puppets masquerading as heroes. You're not defending freedom. You're chasing paychecks." That crossed Marcus's final boundary. Throughout his lifetime, he'd endured various indignities. He'd weathered derogatory remarks, faced consistent underestimation, entered countless situations knowing others noticed his skin color before recognizing his humanity. He'd learned to dismiss most provocations. But this particular attack struck differently. Not because Richard insulted him personally, but because he dishonored the countless men and women who made ultimate sacrifices. Marcus's friends, his brothers and sisters in arms, those who never returned home. His jaw tightened noticeably, his breathing becoming deeper, more deliberately controlled. "Something genuinely amusing," he remarked, voice lowered significantly. "You're pontificating about who belongs in this country, who deserves respect. Yet the only person displaying entitlement is yourself. Why exactly do you believe this parking space belonged to you? Simply because you wanted it? You expected me to relocate because you demanded it? You believe others should automatically yield whenever you appear." Richard's complexion darkened considerably, lips compressed so tightly they nearly disappeared from view. "I'm uncertain which reality you believe exists," Marcus continued steadily, "but this world we currently inhabit, it isn't your personal property, and I refuse to relocate merely because my presence displeases you." Richard's breathing grew increasingly shallow, his entire body visibly tensing. The transformation happened with startling speed. Marcus recognized the warning signs before physical action occurred, the precise moment when Richard's rage overwhelmed rational thought, when his mind determined verbal attacks were insufficient. Richard lunged forward abruptly, hands wildly grasping toward Marcus with more blind fury than tactical purpose. Marcus shifted position smoothly, sidestepping efficiently, observing as Richard stumbled forward when his attack encountered only empty air. The subsequent swing followed immediately, an uncontrolled haymaker aimed directly at Marcus's face. Marcus anticipated this attack before Richard fully committed to it. He leaned backward just enough for the incoming fist to miss by mere inches, watching as Richard's excessive momentum disrupted his balance. Richard demonstrated complete lack of discipline or training, attacking through pure emotional chaos rather than strategic control. His ineffectiveness might have seemed almost comical if not for the dangerous hatred fueling his actions. When the third attack came, a desperate, flailing attempt targeting Marcus's chest, Marcus simply raised his arm, blocking effortlessly, his forearm absorbing impact without visible reaction. The fourth and fifth strikes followed in rapid succession, one aiming toward his midsection, another targeting his shoulder. Marcus retreated smoothly, evading each attempt, his expression reflecting growing impatience rather than concern, as though addressing an annoying inconvenience rather than genuine threat. Richard's breathing deteriorated into ragged gasps, hands trembling from exertion, face mottled with equal parts rage and humiliation. He'd anticipated triggering fear, forcing retreat, provoking emotional outburst, creating opportunity to portray himself as victim. He wanted Marcus to retaliate aggressively, lose self-control, thereby justifying everything Richard had said and done. Marcus refused that satisfaction, which ultimately triggered Richard's complete breakdown. "Fight back!" he screamed, voice cracking under emotional pressure. "Stop standing there acting superior and defend yourself, coward." Marcus's jaw clenched, patience finally exhausted. When Richard attempted another wild swing, Marcus caught his wrist mid-motion. The instant Marcus's finger secured Richard's arm, the aggressor froze completely, breath catching audibly, eyes widening with sudden comprehension. Marcus applied no excessive pressure, avoided twisting motions, used only necessary restraint. He simply immobilized Richard, preventing continuation of the pathetic, ineffectual assault. Richard struggled frantically against the restraint, pulling desperately at his captured arm, but Marcus's grip remained unmovable, seemingly effortless. "Release me immediately," Richard demanded, twisting vainly against inevitable physical reality, finally confronting the undeniable truth of his defeat. Marcus leaned slightly closer, lowering his voice, ensuring only Richard heard his words. "I'm finished tolerating your physical attacks," he stated calmly. "You behave like an uncontrolled animal, yet whimper the moment you realize your complete ineffectiveness. I advise walking away. This situation is entirely your creation." Richard's chest heaved with labored breathing, lips trembling visibly before his complete psychological collapse. He released a gasping, shuddering sob, body suddenly slack, rage dissolving into something pitifully pathetic as his emotional presentation transformed instantaneously. "Help!" he screamed, voice thick with theatrical distress, eyes frantically searching for potential supporters. "He's assaulting me! Somebody intervene immediately!" Marcus immediately released him, stepping backward, hands raised demonstrating non-aggression, expression reflecting weary resignation. Having anticipated this predictable development, Richard's behavior followed classic patterns for individuals of his character. The man who moments earlier attacked repeatedly now portrayed himself as victimized, performing for gathering onlookers, choking dramatically on fabricated tears, voice quavering with artificial distress, desperately attempting to reframe reality. Marcus remained motionless, refusing engagement with Richard's theatrical display. Experience had taught him the futility of arguing against such performances. He simply maintained his position, allowing Richard to destroy his own credibility. Confused murmurs rippled through assembled witnesses. Some appeared uncertain whom to believe, while others maintained raised phones, documenting everything, capturing comprehensive evidence. Karen's unprovoked slap, Richard's multiple failed attacks, Marcus's restrained response without inflicting harm. Marcus Johnson adjusted his tweed jacket sleeve, exhaling quietly while exiting the dealership. Crisp autumn air caressed his weathered features pleasantly. The key fob rested comfortably in his palm, representing justice served rather than mere transportation, symbolizing everything leading to this resolution. His newly acquired vehicle gleamed beneath showroom lights, deep obsidian finish reflecting his composed expression with mirror-like clarity. The lawsuit concluded swiftly. The Wilsons forced to liquidate significant assets, their financial accounts substantially depleted, covering settlement costs. Marcus never actually required their money, but found profound satisfaction watching their arrogance fund his transportation upgrade. Justice rarely manifests this completely, this definitively. As a black man serving his country across decades, Marcus understood this reality better than most. What action would you have taken in Marcus's position? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Has someone underestimated you based on appearance alone? We'd appreciate hearing your experiences about earning respect through adversity. If this veteran's unwavering dignity inspired you, consider hitting the like button and subscribing for additional stories featuring everyday heroes maintaining their principles. Remember that respect isn't freely distributed. It's earned, often through unexpected circumstances and challenging encounters.